Thank you, Lascian Corla. I don't think there's any place more comfortable when you three guys are sitting on the fence. Sinn Féin are sitting on the fence. It's a national pastime for Sinn Féin. You don't take your seats up in Westminster, and you abdicate. No, I didn't interrupt you. I didn't interrupt you once. You had 3 minutes. Never interrupted you once, Deputy. But you see, you're not able to take the criticism back. You have 2 years now with no government in Northern Ireland. So we are dealing with the finances of the state in a careful, prudent and coherent way. I just want to stop the lie, gentlemen, please. And I use the word lie because it is a lie that you've said. This is only about bailing out the banks. I don't think I'm unfair when I say, Deputy Buckley and Deputy Kenny, that's more or less all you said. This is about bailing out the banks. It's what you've said, nothing else. Okay, that's fine. Well, if I could put this on the record of the House, please, Lascian Corla. There's been speculation that the fund could be used only for a future bank bailout. To clarify this in relation to the fund and the drawdown, that the drawdown can only be to the Exchequer. Direct payment to any other body or organisation is neither contemplated nor permitted. Drawdown is also subject to Dáil approval, and any onward payment from the Exchequer will be subject to normal public financial procedures. So just to clarify that for you to accept that. For completeness, I would like to add that the use of the fund for a bank bailout is not forbidden. So it could be used, potentially, if there's a wild emergency at some stage in the future. But these measures could not take place without a further decision by the Dáil, so the Dáil will decide. But these measures that you're talking about, at national and EU level, are intended to protect against all this, in particular the banking union. The banking union is the EU bank supervision and resolution system that has been developed in the aftermath of the last financial crisis and the subsequent crisis in the Eurozone area. The banking union is intended to place the European banking sector on a more sound footing and will restore confidence in the euro area. At its core, the banking union aims to ensure that banks are robust and able to withstand any financial crisis, prevent situations where taxpayers' money is used to save failing banks and protect consumers. So the break between the state, the sovereign, funding banks is what has been worked upon for the last decade. But you, in particular Deputy Kenny and Deputy Buckley, only said that this was for the banks. It is not. Now, do you accept that, gentlemen? No, okay, that's fine. So you can ignore it. So you're ignoring it. So you're just completely ignoring what I've just said. That's fine, and you're entitled to your opinion. But again, you're in the comfort zone of sitting on the ditch, hurling sideways only on the ditch. You don't participate in Westminster, you don't participate in Northern Ireland, and you choose not to participate in government here. Hurlers on the ditch is exclusively what you are, hurlers on the ditch. The bill legislates for what has been termed the Rainy Day Fund, a commitment in the programme for government, partnership for government, and is an important element of the government's strategy to put our national finances on a sound footing while building resilience to external shocks. And there can be external shocks, shocks that none of us are prepared for. That's what this is for. A number of deputies questioned the very purpose of the bill and claimed that international experts recommended other courses of actions. Let me be clear that all of the international and national experts have endorsed the establishment of a rainy day fund. Given our current strong economic performance, we should make provision now to address the effects of a future potential crisis that will be completely outside of our control. This fund will be an economic buffer available for drawdown in the event of a sharp economic downturn. This will also allow the government today to mitigate the effects of that downturn. It allows capital investment and current expenditure to continue even if there's a sharp reduction in tax receipts. I want to touch upon one other aspect of it. A number of deputies use this in relation to the level of indebtedness of the nation. It's over 200 billion euros, somewhere between 200 210 billion euros, and everybody says it's the bank's fault. Gentlemen, I think you said that as well. You did. So I want to put on the record of the House again for clarity. In 2007, the national debt was about 40 billion euros. The figure for the banks is 30 billion. The remainder is what we borrowed from other partners, the European institutions, other countries directly funded us. We did rely on the courtesy of strangers, but the remaining amount, about 150 billion. About 150 billion. It wasn't, it was not the banking crisis. What it was the collapse in the tax take that came. We were on average about 15 billion euros every year short for a decade. So that's why that level of indebtedness is as high as it is. It wasn't because of the banking crisis. We had a crisis. The crisis was as a result of the collapse and the over-reliance on VAT and excise that came, and we kept spending. And you're saying, keep spending, guys. How? This time it'll be different. That's what Sinn Féin's policy is. Tax, spend, destroy the economy, have a good time, and you know what it is? We'll spend the next decade trying to tidy up afterwards. Well, it's been a hard decade, guys. It's been a hard decade on people. So it has. We haven't had the money to spend on the capital that we want, but we are going to spend again on the capital, 116 billion. None of you mentioned 116 billion in relation to rebuilding Ireland. None of you mentioned that. You only mentioned the negative. So you did. Deputies had a variety of positions, with some wanting more funds transferred into the fund, and many others wanting no contributions to the fund due to challenges being faced by citizens, such as the shortage of housing. I want to touch upon housing. 2.4 billion euros will be available to be spent upon housing next year. I think I could stand corrected here. I think it's the most money we have ever spent on housing in the state before. 2.4 billion euros. I want to touch upon, because again the deputies referenced health. We are spending 17 billion euros on health in 2019. 17 billion euros. Never spent more before. Never spent any more on health before. And that's in relation to all of them. You referenced CAMS. We have an issue in CAMS throughout the country. But the issue is having the right qualified people working in the sector. That's the main issue with CAMS, not about money. Because I have spaces I can only speak about Wexford, the area that I know best. When I raise the issue of CAMS, the issue in CAMS is we have money, positions, funded, available. We can't get the appropriate people and the correct staff. Those are the facts. Responsible governments must address a multitude of challenges, but you wouldn't know anything about responsible government because you're out of it in Northern Ireland. You don't even go to Westminster, and you choose not to participate here. They cannot focus on all their resources on one challenge, as this will only exacerbate the other challenges. The government is addressing the shortage of housing with the creation of the Land Development Agency, the establishment of the Home Building Finance Ireland, and a refocused Irish Strategic Investment Fund. These steps will help to deliver new homes on the scale now needed and alleviate price pressures in housing. Recently, at the end of Q3 2018, we have seen new house completions increase by 33% and granted planning permissions increase by 62%. The Deputies McGrath and Fleming raised concerns with the cap of 8 billion euros. This cap reflects the advice of experts that have offered constructive views, and it is also particularly informed by our high debt levels. It's not feasible to continue incurring interest, carrying costs while holding a very sizable rainy day fund. Also, as raised by other deputies, the government must assess the range of competing priorities, the requirements for capital investment in housing, health, the need to make our public finances stable and sustainable, and the need to manage the significant debt burden we are still carrying as a result of the previous crisis. I leave predictions on what will trigger a future economic shock to others, but what is certain is that there are external risks out there and challenges such as Brexit. That's just one of them. I would remind the House that these risks are known and are being planned for, some of them. And there are also other risks that we don't know about that we are not planning for. And they're the ones that come from left field and surprise everybody. We are only too well aware of what the impact of severe economic shock can mean for citizens of our country. While we have made huge progress, the effects of the last economic and financial crisis has long lived with us and are still being felt by too many people today. I am confident we are in a far better position to weather any storm, and when a future crisis hits. Some reserves being set aside under this bill are very important. I do want to touch upon issues that were raised as best I can. I'm not sure I will deal with all of them. The spending on our health service is already at record levels. In 2017, the OECD data placed Ireland 5th in terms of spend per capita amongst EU 27. The additional expenditure in 18 alone is around 1.2 billion. And as I said earlier, there's an expenditure of 17 billion for health in 2019. There is simply no question, none whatsoever, that the health funding will suffer as a result of the establishment of this rainy day fund. The Fiscal Responsibility Act imposes a duty on the government to comply with the fiscal rules. The national surplus does not amend or change this obligation. In setting out the circumstances for drawing down funds for the rainy day fund, they will be formally known as the National Surplus Exceptional Contingency Reserve Fund. Government has been careful to make a clear link with the existence of exceptional circumstances within the meaning of the Stability and Growth Pact. I do want to touch upon a few other issues. Last count, Corla. Again, as I said, there was quite a lot put to me. We can't do it all again. And too many deputies on that side of the House raise issues in terms of not just the deputies from Sinn Féin about whether we should spend money on that and that and that. I didn't have a method of calculating exactly how much money could be spent or should be spent, but it probably ran into billions already. And this is the irresponsible type of politics that creates an expectation that whenever somebody changes from this side of the House to there, or vice versa, that now all of a sudden you're in the position where you have to be responsible and prudent, and you're not able to do what you've promised you can do. That's irresponsible. That's the politics of populism. That's the politics of populism, and that is the body politic in trouble worldwide. I want to touch upon the. I've touched upon the. Well, Deputy, I didn't interrupt any of you.
You are normally very orderly.
Not any of you once. I'm going to try and answer some of the questions as best I can. The state monies that's available from what Wardy intimated is about 8.5 billion euros. The Apple account is, the money in the escrow account is about 14 billion euros, 13 billion plus $1 billion in interest. That's to be decided by the European Court of Justice at some stage in the future. Rural Ireland, you know, I live in rural Ireland. I live on a farm, I live down a lane. I don't have rural broadband connection that I would like about 320,000 other people. But I continually hear about rural Ireland being impacted by government. And there's nothing further from the truth. The figure, and I don't have a figure per county per breakdown, I only have the figure from my own county. But last year in 2018, there was 9.8 billion euros spent by government departments, mainly Minister Ring's department, being spent in County Wexford, in rural Ireland. Not in the towns, but in the countryside, the towns and villages, smaller towns and villages, to support rural Ireland. Rural Ireland is not exclusively about post offices. It is not exclusively about being able to get a couple of pints, like some of the rural independent TDs would like, to have a few drinks and drive home. That is not what rural Ireland is about, in my mind. Rural Ireland isn't thriving everywhere, but there are some areas that are doing much better than others. Deputy Kenny, you've heard me make this point before, and I can name dozens of places that are thriving. I can name equally dozens of other places in rural Ireland that are not. But we are investing in rural Ireland, in communities, in small towns and small villages. The Rural Regeneration Programme, Minister Ring's pot of money, will be a huge benefit, and is. And I think that's going to be, in the first 55 million euros has been announced, I think it was before Christmas, and the second portion of that pot is to be announced soon. And they are crucial projects for rural Ireland. It is not all about the post office. So the congregation area that was post office will change and will potentially change into community centres run by the communities. That's how I see it. And that's how I see the successful communities who are thriving and doing well. And there is money available if they're organised and focused on how they draw down those monies. The Rebuilding Ireland programme, 116 billion euros. So there was a lot of talk about the potential for climate change and the negative impact upon fines that we may have to pay because we're not going to meet our 2020 targets. It is disappointing we're not going to meet those targets, unquestionably. It is disappointing. But the Taoiseach and others in Cabinet and myself are committed to ensuring that we meet our 2030 targets. And of the 116 billion euros for the Rebuilding Ireland programme, the largest pot is for that, to deal with climate change and to deal with the decarbonisation of our society. 23 billion euros. It's the largest amount of money that will be ever spent, and it will be spent in a multitude of ways. And the two areas that are having an impact in terms of agriculture and transport, there will be changes and there will be reconfiguration. And the change is going to come pretty rapidly in my view. And it will be a good thing because we will all benefit from that. And as I said, a number of days, I'm only back from a visit to China for the Asian Financial Forum, representing Ireland to try and bring business to Ireland. And we all have to do our bit, every single one of us, in terms of climate change. The pollution was particularly bad on that occasion. I have to admit it's been really surprised at the level of pollution. I had never experienced it before, and anybody who has never seen it or experienced it, you have to see it to believe it. And it was very, very serious. And we all, in Ireland, will do our bit. We will move faster than we have done before, and we are moving away from what are the fossil fuels, the Fossil Fuel Divestment Bill, which was a private member's bill, which myself and the department supported fully. Deputy Pringle was a good step in the right direction and is a very good thing. The Sustainable Green Finance Bonds, our first national sovereign bonds in that area, 3 billion euros was raised last October, and it was oversubscribed by 4-1. So we are doing our bit. We are going in the right direction. Would we like it to be quicker and faster? Yes, we would. But we are doing our bit. I do want to touch upon a couple of other areas. It was Deputy Murphy who raised about the EIB, the European Investment Bank. The European Investment Bank is making really good investments in projects that will be crucial to the correct development of our country. But they are loans. An investment bank loan has to be paid back. And the investment bank are on board. The multilateral banks, certainly from my experience, from my dealings with them, are doing a lot of really, really good work. And Ireland are now part of the African Development Bank, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, and others. And that will have a huge impact upon how we blend funding to deal with climate change in the future. And I have to absolutely, Deputy Murphy isn't here. Deputy Murphy made a statement that is wrong. And the statement that is wrong is that Ireland is unattractive to foreign direct investment. That is absolutely wrong. Ireland is very attractive to foreign direct investment. And we have won a large share of potential Brexit jobs from the United Kingdom. And I've always been on the record of saying that when I was presenting Ireland as a place where business can be done in terms of Brexit, I wasn't presenting it on the basis that the structures that we have put in place are not to be opportunistic. But the point I made to companies who had a Brexit difficulty was quite simply that if you have a difficulty, we can be part of your solution. Have a look at what the offering we have here in Ireland. And these jobs are all over the country. They are not all in Dublin. 1/3 of the jobs in financial services, international financial services, are outside of County Dublin. But we keep being told by some in opposition that rural Ireland is dying. State Street in Kilkenny, almost 1,000 jobs. Primerica in Letterkenny, I think it's 1,400 jobs at this stage. BNY in Wexford, 500 jobs. And these are really important to the rural economy of rural Ireland, and they are all over the country. So, Chairman, last Ciarán, I'm going to finish. The fund is not to bail out banks. It is not. It is not to bail out banks. As I said earlier, I didn't sugarcoat it. It could be permitted in a severe economic shock, and I said that. But we don't know what the next economic shock is. There's a book written, Come Back to the Crisis. This time it's different. It's always different. There's just a different spin on it, different hue on it. Will it be the banks? Will it be something else? I don't know what the economic shock potentially is or could be. It could be a hard Brexit. It could very well be. It could be Britain leaving without a deal. There is an ideological clash that's happening in the House of Commons that we're seeing now, that where it doesn't seem that common sense will prevail. I'm a believer in politics. I'm an optimist as well, and I believe common sense will eventually prevail. But it could be the UK crashing out, hard Brexit, no deal, by accident. And if that happens, and there is research that shows that that happening could have a larger impact on the world economy than the economic recession that we've just come out of. So we don't know what's coming next. This is prudent, this is careful, this is diligent, it's the right thing to do. But I see my friends on the other side of the House, in just about everybody, not everybody, I don't want to be unfair, saying this is wrong, this is not wrong, this is prudent. Thank you.
That concludes the